Have you ever been scared to the core of your soul? What's the story? I was in a prison in an African country with a septic wound in my back, and the malaria made me see things. I feel like I need to hear more details. I was an aid worker in Nigeria. There was an IED explosion. I ducked and covered, but some of the shrapnel hit me in the back. We were forced to flee and in so doing cross the Niger border where we were accused of being terrorists. My assumption is that they thought we were arms dealers/smugglers supplying the insurgents. We were arrested and taken to a prison. Conditions at the prison were subpar to say the least. Somewhere in there, the mosquitoes got me and I contracted malaria. The fever dreams still haunt me to this day. When we were finally released, I was 30 pounds underweight, severely dehydrated, septic, and probably days away from death. When I was new to teaching, high school, I was being observed by a principal. The class was being mostly good, but this one student was head down sleeping. I called his name, no response, so I went over to wake him up. I touched his arm and he just fell over, yellow foamy drool everywhere. He had overdosed. Thank God the principal was there with their walkie to call for help while I did what first aid I knew. Student survived, but I was so scared because I wasn't sure how to help, or if my helping was hurting. It's the feeling of being utterly powerless and incompetent when someone's life is in your hands. What happened to the kid? He did go to treatment. He is an adult now, with a family and a good life. His buddy that gave him the pills ended up arrested, moved away, did jail time as an adult, moved back and is now getting his life together. They were some of my kids that I have kept in touch with over the years. Sucked farther and farther out to sea on my bodyboard after sunset while surfing triple overhead waves, just as the fog bank rolled in obscuring the coastline, and the direction I needed to swim to get home. Took a couple hours in near dark open ocean to land a couple miles up the coast, guided solely by the faint, faraway string of a few streetlights and headlights that broke through the fog. Every splash I heard behind me was definitely a great white shark. I'd panic paddle whenever there was a big splash behind me. Again, I was in 20-foot seas. This happened constantly, until I could regain my calm center and try to drop my heart rate, the whole while thinking about how all that fast paddling I did probably just attracted a shark. This was near San Francisco, lost at sea in great white breeding grounds while looking like a seal on a winter night, in horrendous conditions. It's not easy landing on a tiny strip of beach when 12-foot waves are dumping onto dry sand and the current is ripping at a decent pace. 2 miles away, I landed safely. Slept like a baby, waking up screaming every 2 hours. I was almost murdered. It's a long story, but I'll try to paraphrase it. When I was a senior in high school, a girl in my neighborhood went missing and about a month later was found dead. During that time her adoptive father was contacting people left and right. Apparently he had his suspicions about my ex-boyfriend of 3 years who dated the missing girl in middle school. Adoptive father comes to my house to talk to me about ex and never really asked me anything about him, but he talked about himself the whole time and how he was in a white supremacy gang and kills 12 people a year. After he left my house he kept trying to get me to meet with him alone without my mom present to talk to me more about my ex because he felt like I was leaving stuff out in front of my mom. I told him no, I wasn't comfortable, and he just kept insisting. It got to the point where I had to have security walk me to and from my car at work and school. Adoptive father ends up getting arrested on unrelated charges and the detectives come and talk to me to figure out what he said to me, etc. They told me to stay away from him and that he is dangerous. They pulled my mom away to speak privately to her, and I didn't find out till I was in college that they told her that they think he murdered the girl and that he was planning on murdering me and blaming it on my ex, that he went crazy and started murdering all his ex-girlfriends. It's been 7 years since this happened and the adoptive father was just convicted of murdering his daughter in February. But, I'm always terrified that one of his brothers are watching me since I testified against him. Are you talking about AJ Hadsell? Her given name was Angelica. Her stepdad Wesley was horrible and tried framing a male friend of hers. Wesley had been kicked out of the house a few days prior for drug use and he kidnapped AJ and injected her with heroin before SAing her and beating her. He was finally found guilty earlier this year. 7 years later, may he rot for eternity. Went into my then 2-year-old nephew's room to wake him up for the day. He was in his crib laying in a kind of weird posture, with his eyes wide open staring off at nothing. I figured he was awake already and thought, ha ha, he looks dead, to myself, and said, "Good morning, Matthew." And his eyes didn't move to look at me. I said, "Matthew?" And got closer to the crib and the way he looked was worse up close, just unfocused dead eyes looking at nothing, body limp. I shook him gently, then harder, saying, "Matthew? Matthew? Matthew?" And when I yelled his name, his eyes suddenly focused and he smiled at me and stretched like he often does when he first wakes up. Little fucker was asleep with his eyes open. It was only a few seconds, but I swear my blood turned to ice. Was never so scared in my goddamn life. No idea what caused it, and he never did it again. When I was in 6th grade, we were in choir one day when out of nowhere an announcement comes over the loudspeaker. "We are going into lockdown. This is not a drill. There is an active shooter in the building." We all panicked, switched out the lights, and packed ourselves into the furthest corner of the room away from the door, all 110 of us. Some people were crying, others were praying. My hands were shaking and I was just whispering, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." At some point, someone came by trying the door and pounding on it, and I had never felt terror like that before, and I haven't felt it like that since. After the longest 5 minutes of my life, they got on the loudspeaker and said, "Thank you for your cooperation during the drill, students. You may resume class as normal." We went from utter terror to relief to rage in a matter of seconds. Edit: I think I accidentally started a war with this thread, so I just wanted to address the aftermath. The school received a ton of backlash for the way they handled this. A bunch of people pulled their kids out of my district and a lot of students didn't come to school for a week. From then on, all active shooter drills were announced as soft or hard lockdown drills, and we knew about them beforehand. Dude, if I was a parent and I heard the school pulled that kind of stunt, I'd be furious. Our parents were unhinged, and rightfully so. A lot of people didn't come to school for a week and I had nightmares for weeks afterwards. Needless to say, all drills were announced as drills from then on. Got lost when I was out skiing and almost dove off a cliff. Wound up hanging on the edge of a tree branch off like a 100-foot drop. It was 25 years ago and I still can feel that almost hollowed out feeling in my chest. Almost like a vacuum. How'd you get back up? I was able to scoot/seal back up. Halfway some people came. I heard a, "Whoa, there's tracks here," and I saw a guy peeping over the edge. He reached down with a pole and helped me. The area was roped off, but the rope was probably 100 yards from those cliffs. But I heard the ski patrol have started putting ropes by the actual cliff as well. I hope not, because someone actually went off it. When I saw my mom in the ICU. She was fine one day, went to the ER the next, had 3 surgeries, wound up being put on a ventilator twice and developed a lethal infection that wasn't responding to treatment. She developed acute respiratory distress syndrome. Her heart was stopping every night. One time I was there and saw it happen, and that's when I started to really think there wasn't going to be a way out for her. I fought the staff pretty hard about this, but I realized she is basically being tortured at that point for nothing. They took her off the vent, gave her heavy doses of morphine to stop air hunger, and she died in front of me back in March. She was 60, so not particularly old. I turned 30 a couple weeks afterward. I miss her. We were very, very close and lived together, and now I am pretty much alone in the world. She was a powerful woman and I did not expect her to leave like that or so soon. But she had always told me, if I get so old I can't wipe my own ass, just throw me off a bridge. I also miss her sense of humor, so I hope that what transpired was more preferable than winding up permanently and severely disabled. If she could have survived all that damage, she would have absolutely and utterly hated that. Got into a head-on collision when a dude swerved into my lane. When I came to, I saw smoke coming from the engine and my driver's side door was smashed in, so I couldn't open it. Was so scared I couldn't think straight to try another door, so I pulled myself out of the broken window in my driver's side door. Terrifying to think you are trapped in a burning car. My ex-girlfriend had a psychotic breakdown. Went from perfectly normal to insane within a week. One night I took her to the hospital during one of her episodes, and the doctor pumped her full of sedatives and said to bring her back in the morning as they had no beds. I didn't feel comfortable about leaving the hospital, but he assured me she'd be fine until the morning. When I woke up the following morning, I opened my eyes and saw she was lying on her pillow staring at me wide-eyed and grinning. It scared the hell out of me. As we got up to get ready to go back to the hospital, she came at me with a knife and tried to stab me. I was able to get away from her and calm the situation long enough to call the police and paramedics. She later said that she had to kill me. I shudder to think what might have happened if I had stayed sleeping for longer that morning. What triggered the breakdown, and did she recover? She went to a therapist to help her get through some work-related stress. It was there that some past wounds were opened where she'd been abused as a child by her uncle. She had gone to about 6 sessions before she turned. That's all it took. To this day she has never fully recovered. A cocktail of medication gets her through. That's insane. How long were y'all together and how long was she just completely normal until going off the deep end? We were together for about 7 years. She was an incredibly caring and fun-loving person. I saw absolutely no sign of anything wrong with her. I first noticed some slightly odd behavior about 2 weeks before her complete breakdown, but it was really the final week where it went from a little odd to full psychosis. We stayed together for about 6 months after that incident, but she was no longer the person I knew, so it was very hard. In the end, we just couldn't do it for any longer. To this day, she has never fully recovered. It breaks my heart. I do feel like I failed her. She's with someone else now and seems content enough. I was 11, maybe 12 years old. Dad worked late most nights, so I was home alone per usual. Home, however, was a ranch house far out of town in a Florida pine forest. It was late and dark. The doors were all French-style glass with no blinds or curtains. Outside those glass doors was only a hauntingly dark tree line, dimly lit by the moon. Leaving all the lights on and a TV gave some comfort, but this meant it was much easier to see in than it was for me to see out. On this night I had to get something out of the back room. This was our name for a garage that was absorbed into the house. The concrete floors and unfinished walls gave the room a cold air. As I'm searching for what I need, I glance up to see a large bleach white figure standing outside the glass door. 6 feet tall with no head and no expression. Just white hair draped in front like a ring girl. This was the night I learned there was another option besides fight or flight. It was freeze. I stood frozen in fear, as if the blood in my body just drained. Unable to do anything until my brain recognized it was a horse's ass. The horse got out of its pen and was chilling under the carport, with its ass against the glass door. We were at the beach and my son needed to use the washroom. I took him and my 2-year-old daughter into the washroom. My son went into the stall to do his thing. Because his swim trunks were wet, he had trouble pulling them up. I went in the stall to help him for literally 15 seconds, and when I came out my daughter was gone. I ran out of the washroom, looked to the beach, she wasn't in sight. I started screaming her name and I couldn't find her anywhere. Then someone said, "I think I saw her at the playground." I ran up a grassy hill and saw her on the slide. That minute she was missing was the scariest moment of my life. I'm pretty sure these 2 old dudes were going to kidnap me once when I was 16. When I tell this story, people think I'm overreacting to some typical, harmless creeps, who weren't seriously going to do anything to me. But you would have just had to see their body language and hear this man's voice for yourself to get it. Like most women, I have heard my fair share of creepy comments from the usual men that catcall women in parking lots and stuff. This was very different. I was browsing CDs alone in a store. The CD section was completely empty, aside from me. While I was looking, suddenly these 2 middle-aged men materialized out of nowhere. They had me corned up, standing so close they were almost touching me. I looked up into the face of the one on my left, and he just had this completely blank face. With no inflection in his voice, he said, "Hey gorgeous, what are you doing tonight?" I remember being surprised by how normal he looked, because he looked like he could have been one of my friend's dads or someone my dad knows. Very typical looking man in his mid to late 50s with completely gray hair and glasses, and a buttoned up long sleeve shirt tucked into his jeans. He looked clean and well kept. But he was giving off major serial killer vibes. His cold, expressionless face, his monotone voice. I just knew he wanted to do some Ted Bundy stuff to me. I didn't look at his friend's face, but I remember that he had a huge beer gut. I didn't reply, I just quickly darted between him and his fat friend and ran away. This happens to me about every 4 months when I get an MRI to check on my brain tumor. I hear ya, I got scanxiety too, adrenocortical carcinoma. Every 3 months, for another year. Then every 6 months for 5 years, then once a year for another 5. I hope it stays dormant. I have my next scan in 3 weeks. It's been almost 8 years now. It's a strange one, because I had no actual, logical, reason to feel scared, yet I was terrified. I worked in a shop a few years ago and was tidying up at the front of the store near the windows and the entrance. I saw a man walk in, but I only saw his back when he came into the store. He had long hair and wore a leather jacket or leather trousers or maybe both, can't remember. I thought nothing of it at the time. A few minutes later the same man was walking back towards the doors and I looked at him casually. He was looking at me too, so we ended up making eye contact. Instant goosebumps, shivers. Whatever vibes he was giving off, it scared the shit out of me to the point that I couldn't move or even take my eyes off him. He slowly walked towards the doors while maintaining an eye contact. When he walked past me, he had this smirk on his face that was just purely evil. He proceeded to walk out of the store and turned right, and for a few moments he was covered by a huge sign in our window. Every cell in my body screamed at me to go. Run. Even though he was actually leaving clearly, I still felt the need to get as far away from him as possible. But at the same time I felt like I didn't want to lose him out of my sight until I knew for sure he was gone. As he came back into view, he was still looking at me. When he finally walked past our window, I almost cried from relief that he was gone. He never said a word. Never even approached me. All he did was looking at me, and it scared me more than anyone ever. I never saw him again, and I hope I never will. I've been to Afghanistan, Iraq, and a lot of other scary places. My one and only flat-out panic attack? An IKEA store in Los Angeles. I could not breathe and absolutely had to get out of there. My wife still gives me crap to this day. And for those wondering, this was not a reaction to any of the scary places. This was well before I went to any of those places and at a time when I had very little to stress about. Edit, I'm relieved to hear other people have had the same reaction. It was a long time ago and I can still remember it vividly. Sorry to hear Wegmans is not a happy place for some. I love that store. I was about to fall asleep in my bedroom. I was 16 at the time, so it's a while ago. Suddenly my dad calls me, which is weird considering it was 2 in the morning and my dad never calls me because we're literally in the same house. My dad tells me to come downstairs because he doesn't feel very well, so I do. My dad is rarely sick, so I started worrying. When I came downstairs, he was drenched in sweat and held a hand clutching to his heart, making weird noises in pain. When I sat down beside him, he told me he called an ambulance. Then he went quiet, and around half a minute later he just said, "Can you hold my hand?" It terrified me because it felt like he was making sure to say goodbye in case he died. It took longer than it should have for the ambulance to arrive, and my dad's condition only got worse and worse. When they finally arrived, they were all very calm, but suddenly there was a change. They did an electrocardiogram on the spot and suddenly started hurrying around with bags of liquid and needles and monitors around my living room, and they even told me to hold stuff and carry things for them. I tried to keep my composure, but I was shaking in terror. I overheard them saying that he was having a heart attack. They asked me to call my mom. I lived alone with my dad at the time, so I tried, but she didn't pick up. I told them she didn't pick up and they basically said, "Okay, take care of yourself," and left with my dad. My dad was admitted to the hospital and ended up surviving the heart attack with minor complications, but I was left alone at home for 5 days straight. I was 16 for fuck's sake, and no one did the slightest effort to make sure that I was alright. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat. I just waited for my dad to come home. My dad is my best friend, he's the only one I have, and I catch myself going to check on him during the night just to make sure he's alive. I'm terrified every day. Family member suffered a psychotic break. Bipolar and combat-related PTSD. When he was good, he was good. When he wasn't, he was threatening to kill my family, getting into brutal street fights, and going on months-long benders. The feeling of having a special forces soldier hunting you while knowing where you live is really something. I spent way more nights sleeping in a chair with a loaded rifle than anyone should have too. Sounds really terrifying to me. You okay now? Mostly. Unfortunately, he took his own life less than a year ago. We were very close. I really wish he could have gotten the help he needed, but I'm not sure such help even exists. He was about to get married, with a destination wedding to his fiancée's home country. I was to be his best man, and we had plans to visit castles and see all of the old medieval history we don't have here in the US. The last text message I ever sent him was a picture of an automated lock screen on the work computer he built. It was one of the castles we planned to see. Sadly, I believe he was already dead before he got the message. His birthday was last week, and I may have gotten trashed off of his favorite beer on Memorial Day. This will be the first year where we won't play Mortar Team with the fireworks on the 4th of July. It was kind of bittersweet. Obviously it was incredibly hard and I still grieve. But I like to think he was trying to save my family the stress of his mental health, and to save me from the guilt if I had to be the one to kill him. I think he knew there were only 3 ways out: his alcoholism, kill himself, or I would have had to do it during one of his episodes. Definitely love your family while you have them, and always remember people at their best. And a shameless plug to Mission 22. They're a charity focusing on veteran reintegration and prevention. I grew up in an area where black bears were common. My scariest moment was when I got caught out in the yard as a kid with a black bear between me and the house. I think I was 10. I just froze. I knew I was supposed to wave my arms and shout and make myself look scary, but I was so scared I couldn't think. Our senior dog, Sandy, So old we used to joke she needed 10 minutes to let the engine run before going on a walk. Friendliest damn dog in the world, biggest danger from her was being licked to death, started baying like she was a hellhound from her outside run. She went nuts. Never heard her make a noise like that before or since. She scared it off, and I sprinted to the house. Rest in peace, Sandy. You may have been confused by overly shiny floor tiles, but you were one hell of a good girl. The birth of my son. Wife started having contractions, but wanted to keep waiting because she is in the medical field and didn't want to be that woman that gets sent home for false labor pains. Gets to the point where you are supposed to go in and she's still arguing with me. But then the pain gets so much my wife, who has a high pain tolerance, almost collapses. And now the contractions are starting to run into each other. I put my foot down and say, "We are going, now." I grab the prepared bag and my wife understands I'm not taking no for an answer. We drive to the hospital. The contractions went back to a normal pattern and we're in the check-in. Everything is looking good, but the nurse notes the baby's heartbeat is a little low. We get checked into the room. After we're all in the room and things are progressing, the door bursts open and about a dozen doctors and nurses fly into the room. They have my wife move into different positions, as I notice the lead doctor is worried about the baby's heartbeat. Lead doctor says, "We're going to the operating room now, where's the father?" I pipe up that I'm the father. "Okay, come with us, and keep up." The team then grabs the bed and run to the operating room, with me trailing. As we're running, one of the medical people is telling me they're going to do a cesarean section, and once they get set up they'll come and get me to scrub in. We get to the operating room and have me wait outside, across the hall. Now begins the scariest half hour of my life. Once in a while I see people running in or out, but they don't come to get me. My mind is racing. What if we lose the baby? What if I lose my wife? What if I lose them both? It was only a half hour, but it was a brutal half hour. But this story has a happy ending. Eventually they come out and tell me my son has been born and he and my wife are doing good. They bring out my son and I hold him in my hands for the first time, and I feel a joy I cannot describe. A couple of weeks later, in the follow-up appointment, my wife's doctor explains we very nearly lost them both. If I had been 10 minutes later, things could have been bad. But we're all happy and healthy now. All is well that ends well. But that half hour was easily the scariest moments of my life.